The failed handshake. The TSV Concorde drifted silently in the neutral territory of the Epsilon Eridani system, its white hull gleaming against the backdrop of stars. This vessel represented humanity's greatest hope for peaceful integration into the galactic community. Unlike the military ships that comprised most of Earth's burgeoning space fleet, the Concorde had been designed with a single purpose: diplomacy. Captain Eliza Reeves stood on the observation deck, her reflection ghosting against the transparent aluminum viewport. At 42, she wore the distinction of being Earth's first official diplomatic envoy to the Solaran Empire, the dominant power in this arm of the galaxy. 20 years in the Terran Space Force had earned her this mission, a mission that could determine humanity's place among the stars. Captain, the Solaran delegation is preparing to dock. Lieutenant Commander Jackson's voice came through the comms. Their vessel has cleared the final security check. Acknowledged, Reeves replied, straightening her dress uniform. Alert the honor guard and diplomatic team. Let's give our guests a proper welcome. The Concorde had been meticulously prepared for this encounter. Every detail, from the atmospheric composition in the diplomatic chambers to the specifically designed furniture accommodating Solaran physiology, had been researched and implemented with care. Humanity had spent 15 years studying the Solarans from a distance, learning their language, customs, and hierarchy. Now, finally, after cautious communication, the Solaran High Command had agreed to formal talks. Ambassador Chen joined Reeves as they walked to the docking bay. "Nervous, Captain?" he asked with a slight smile. "Just cautiously optimistic," she replied. "We've prepared for everything. Almost everything, as it turned out." The Solaran delegation emerged from their sleek, obsidian vessel. Tall, humanoid figures with iridescent skin that shifted colors with their emotions. High Commander Vexarin led them, his skin pulsing with deep blue patterns that human xenopsychologists had identified as indicating curiosity or perhaps diplomatic engagement. The formal greetings proceeded according to protocol. The universal translators worked flawlessly as Ambassador Chen delivered Earth's message of peace and cooperation. High Commander Vexarin listened, his facial features, so similar to human expressions yet disturbingly different, remaining impassive. When it was the Solaran's turn to speak, Vexarin's skin shifted to a purple hue never documented in human intelligence reports. "We have studied your species for some time," the High Commander said, his translated voice uncommonly flat. "Your rapid technological advancement is concerning." Before Chen could respond, Vexarin made a subtle gesture. The 6 Solaran guards suddenly produced weapons that had somehow evaded the Concorde's security scans. "What is the meaning of this?" Reeves demanded, stepping forward as her security team moved to protect the ambassador. "Preemptive security," Vexarin stated without emotion. "Your species represents a destabilizing factor in this sector. The Solaran Empire has maintained peace for 9 centuries by eliminating potential threats before they mature." The first shot struck Ambassador Chen in the chest, disintegrating his torso in a flash of green energy. The diplomatic chamber erupted into chaos as the Solaran guards opened fire on the unarmed human delegation. Reeves reacted instantly, diving for cover while activating her emergency beacon. The ship's AI responded immediately, sealing compartments and activating defense protocols that had been deemed unnecessary for a diplomatic mission, but installed nonetheless. Humanity's painful history of conflict had taught them to always have contingencies. The slaughter in the diplomatic chamber was swift and brutal. Of the 12 members of the human diplomatic team, only Reeves and 2 security officers survived the initial attack, retreating through emergency bulkheads as the ship's automated defense systems engage. "All hands, this is Captain Reeves. We are under attack. Implement protocol Broken Arrow. I repeat, Broken Arrow." Throughout the ship, hidden weapon caches unlocked for the crew. The Concorde might have been designed for peace, but Earth had learned long ago that peace required the capability for self-defense. The ship's communication officer, bleeding from a wound in her shoulder, established a quantum-encrypted channel to Earth Command. Signal established, Captain. 30-second window before they can trace it. Reeves looked directly into the camera. Earth Command. This is Captain Reeves. The diplomatic mission has failed. The Solarans executed Ambassador Chen and most of the diplomatic team without provocation. They've declared humanity a threat to be eliminated. We are attempting to break free from their boarding party, but the Concorde wasn't built for combat. Request immediate military response. She paused, then added, they've made their choice. Now it's time for ours. The transmission cut as the Solaran boarding party breached another compartment. The Concorde, despite its crew's valiant efforts, was outmatched. The vessel's engines were disabled by a precision strike from the Solaran diplomatic ship, which had clearly been a military vessel disguised for this ambush. Reeves gathered the surviving crew in the emergency shuttle bay. We can't save the Concorde, she told them grimly, but we can bring its data back to Earth. They need to know what happened here. As the evacuation pods launched into space, Reeves took one last look at her command. The Concorde's white hull was now scared and breached. Its mission of peace ended before it truly began. She activated the ship's self-destruct sequence as her pod accelerated away from the doomed vessel. We tried peace, she whispered to herself as the explosion illuminated space behind her. God help them for what comes next. Back on Earth, the response to the Epsilon Eridani massacre was immediate and overwhelming. The quantum transmission had been received and authenticated. Within hours, Earth's combined military forces were mobilizing for war. In the strategic command bunker beneath the Rocky Mountains, General Marcus Blackwood addressed the assembled military leadership and emergency session of the United Earth Government. The Solarans have made a critical miscalculation, he stated, his voice steady despite the rage burning behind his eyes. They assumed that our diplomatic overture indicated weakness. They believed that by decapitating our leadership in one strike, they could intimidate humanity into submission or retreat. The holographic display showed the Solaran Empire's territory, 17 star systems, 3 primary military production facilities, and their homeworld, Solara Prime. Our intelligence indicates they're preparing for a prolonged campaign against our colonial territories, Blackwood continued. They expect us to be disorganized, defensive, and demoralized after their attack. They don't understand who they're dealing with. President Kamala Rivera stood, her expression resolute. The United Earth Government has unanimously voted to authorize full military response. The unprovoked execution of our diplomatic mission cannot and will not stand. She turned to Blackwood. General, you have full operational authority. How do you intend to proceed? Blackwood activated a different holographic display, showing a military deployment that had clearly been prepared long before today's events. Madam President, with your permission, we'll implement Operation Thunderstrike. The display showed hundreds of ships, far more than the Solarans believed humanity possessed, arranged in attack formations. For the past decade, while publicly pursuing diplomatic relations, we've been quietly building our fleet. The ships we've revealed to Solaran intelligence represent less than 30% of our actual military capacity. Murmurs rippled through the assembly. Earth's military buildup had been one of humanity's most closely guarded secrets. Additionally, Blackwood continued, we've completed development of the Archangel-class warships. The hologram shifted to show massive vessels that dwarfed anything in Earth's publicly known fleet. 6 of these ships are ready for deployment, each capable of engaging an entire Solaran battle group. President Rivera studied the plans. The Solarans believe we'll respond conventionally, defend our colonies, establish a front, engage in traditional space warfare. Yes, Madam President, Blackwood nodded. And that's exactly what we won't do. Humanity has learned from its own blood-soaked history that prolonged conflicts only maximize suffering. We're not going to fight a war of attrition. We're going to end this before it begins. Captain Reeves, one of the few survivors of the Concorde, had been brought directly to the command center upon her return to Earth. Still wearing the burned and blood-stained remnants of her dress uniform, she stepped forward. The Solarans believe they understand humanity based on our peaceful overtures, she said, her voice steady despite the trauma she'd endured. They think they've seen our hand, but we've shown them nothing. Their attack on the Concord revealed everything about their intentions and tactics, while we've revealed nothing of our true capabilities. President Rivera looked around the room, meeting each commander's eyes before returning to Blackwood. How quickly can Thunderstrike be deployed? The fleet is already assembling at Jupiter's shadow, Blackwood replied. We can launch within 72 hours. Rivera nodded. Make it 48. I want this response to come before they've finished celebrating their victory. As the meeting concluded, Reeves found herself standing beside Blackwood, watching the simulations of the coming battle. They thought we came in peace because we were weak, she said quietly. They don't understand that peace was always our preference, not our only option. Blackwood nodded grimly. They're about to learn the difference. Reckoning. The Solaran Empire had existed for 9 centuries, expanding methodically through their region of space. Their technological superiority and disciplined military had allowed them to absorb or eliminate 23 other species. Their strategy was always the same. Identify potential rivals early, demonstrate overwhelming force through a preemptive strike, then offer terms of submission. It had never failed them before. Until humanity. 76 hours after the destruction of the TSV Concord, long-range Solaran sensors detected anomalies at the edge of their home system. The readings were dismissed as instrument errors. The energy signatures were too massive, suggesting a fleet larger than anything that primitive humans could possibly field. Admiral Vexaran, newly promoted for his successful neutralization of the human diplomatic threat, was reviewing plans for the subjugation of Earth's colonies when the first reports came in. Impossible, he muttered, his skin flickering between colors of disbelief and concern. Confirm these readings. Confirmed, Admiral. His sensor officer replied, her own skin pulsing with alarm patterns. 257 warships have entered the Joran system. They're bypassing our outer colonies entirely. Vexaran stared at the tactical display in disbelief. Human ships were appearing throughout Solaran space, not at the border colonies where the Empire had concentrated its defense fleets, but deep within their territory, striking at critical infrastructure and military installations simultaneously. How did they penetrate our detection grid? He demanded. The answer came from an unexpected quarter. A junior science officer stepped forward, his skin showing the caution patterns of one who fears bringing bad news. Sir, analysis indicates they're using some form of quantum tunneling technology. They're not traveling through our space. They're bypassing it entirely. The implications were staggering. Solaran's strategic doctrine relied on defined front lines and the ability to concentrate forces against invaders who would be forced to advance through contested systems. The humans were ignoring these fundamental principles of warfare, appearing wherever they chose. General alert to all systems, Vexaran ordered. Recall the border fleets immediately. But it was already too late. Admiral Eliza Reeves, her promotion battlefield granted, stood on the bridge of the TSS Nemesis, an Archangel-class warship that had remained hidden in Earth's asteroid belt until 2 days ago. The massive vessel represented the pinnacle of human military engineering, a ship built with the single purpose of projecting overwhelming force. Status of the Solaran home fleet, she asked, her voice calm despite the scale of the operation she was commanding. Responding exactly as predicted, Admiral, her tactical officer reported. They're attempting to regroup to defend their capital. 70% of their forces are still out of position, trying to return from the colonial defense lines. Reeves nodded. The Solaran military doctrine was rigid, predictable, a consequence of centuries without a serious challenger. Proceed with Phase 2. Throughout Solaran space, human vessels executed perfectly coordinated strikes against military targets. Shipyards, fleet bases, command centers, all were hit simultaneously. There was no gradual escalation, no testing of defenses, Humanity had committed fully to a strategic doctrine that had evolved from their own bitter history. When war becomes inevitable, strike with such overwhelming force that the enemy's capacity to wage war is eliminated in the opening moments. On Solara Prime, the civilian population watched in horror as orbital defense platforms, the pride of their military, went dark one by one. The night sky blazed with the fiery deaths of ships that had never even managed to engage the enemy. In the Imperial Palace, Emperor Zexarin demanded explanations from his military council. How is this possible? They were primitives. Their technology was centuries behind ours. Admiral Vexarin could only shake his head, his skin now a solid gray of despair. They deceived us, Your Majesty. What they showed us was a facade. In orbit above Solara Prime, the Nemesis and 5 other Archangel-class warships took position, their massive forms eclipsing the sun from portions of the planet below. Open a system-wide channel, Reeves ordered. All frequencies, all languages. When confirmation came, she stood, facing the communications array. Her image would be broadcasted to every screen, every public space throughout the Solaran system. I am Admiral Eliza Reeves of the Terran Defense Fleet, she began, her voice steady and clear. 76 hours ago, your military executed an unprovoked attack on our diplomatic vessel and murdered our representatives after inviting us to peace talks. The images of the massacre aboard the Concorde, captured by the ship's security systems and recovered from the black box, played alongside her transmission. Humanity extended a hand of peace. You responded with treachery and violence, believing us weak and unprepared for conflict. She paused, letting the weight of her next words settle. That was a mistake. The transmission shifted to show the current state of the Solaran military. Across 17 systems, their forces were in disarray, their military infrastructure in ruins. We could continue this assault. We could reduce your homeworld to ash, as you no doubt planned for ours. But unlike you, we take no pleasure in unnecessary destruction. Reeves's expression hardened. These are our terms: immediate and unconditional surrender of all Solaran military forces. Your fleet will stand down. Your weapons will be decommissioned. Your military leadership, beginning with Admiral Vexaran, will surrender themselves to face justice for the murders of our diplomatic team. She let the silence stretch for a moment before continuing. You have 1 hour to comply. If we detect any attempt to evacuate military leadership, launch hidden weapons, or otherwise resist, we will have no choice but to continue our operations with full force. The transmission ended, leaving the Solaran leadership staring at each other in stunned silence. Emperor Zexarin turned to his advisors. Can we resist? Is there any way to drive them back? The Imperial military strategist, his skin the pale yellow of analytical calculation, spoke carefully. Your Majesty, preliminary assessments indicate the humans have destroyed or disabled 60% of our total military capacity in the opening strikes. The remaining forces are scattered and unable to coordinate effectively. He paused. More concerning, their technology is far beyond what our intelligence suggested. The energy readings from those 6 capital ships exceed anything in our arsenal. Vexarin, who had led the fatal attack on the Concorde, stepped forward. Your Majesty, I take full responsibility for this catastrophe. Our intelligence was wrong. We believed the humans were showing us their full capabilities when they were actually concealing their true strength. His skin had turned the deep blue of resignation. I will surrender myself as they demand. The Emperor's own skin flashed with patterns of rage before settling into the purple of decision. No, we all approved this strategy. And now we all face the consequences. He turned to his communications officer. Open a channel to the human fleet. Aboard the Nemesis, Reeves watched as the Emperor himself appeared on the main viewer. Admiral Reeves, he began, his translated voice carrying none of the arrogance that had characterized Solaran communications until now. The Solaran Empire accepts your terms of surrender. We ask only that you spare our civilian population, who had no knowledge of the actions taken against your people." Reeves studied him carefully. "Your civilians will not be harmed, Emperor Zexaran. Unlike your empire, we do not punish entire species for the actions of their leaders. But make no mistake, your military power ends today. Your empire as you knew it is over." The formal surrender was conducted aboard the Nemesis. The Solaran military leadership, including Vexaran, were taken into custody to stand trial for war crimes. The terms imposed by humanity were severe but not vengeful: complete demilitarization, reparations to be paid to Earth, and the dismantling of the imperial system that had authorized the attack. As the Solaran delegation departed, Emperor Zexaran, now stripped of his military authority and reduced to a figurehead, approached Reeves. "You could have destroyed us completely," he said quietly. "Why didn't you?" Reeves looked at him steadily. "Because that was never our goal. We didn't want war. We didn't want conquest. We wanted peace. Real peace, not the domination you call peace." She gestured toward the viewport, where Earth's fleet maintained its vigilant position. "Remember this, Zexaran. Humanity tried peace first. Remember what happened when you rejected it." In the months that followed, news of humanity's swift and decisive victory spread throughout the galaxy. Species that had lived under Solaran domination for centuries found themselves suddenly free. Other empires and confederations that had been watching Earth's emergence with predatory interest quickly revised their assessments. Humanity established itself not as conquerors but as guarantors of a new order, one where diplomatic solutions were genuinely pursued, but where aggression was met with overwhelming response. The Concord Incident, as it came to be known, established a principle that would echo across the stars. Humans will extend a hand in peace, but those who choose war will face the full measure of humanity's resolve. 1 year after the surrender, a new diplomatic vessel, the TSV Concord I, embarked on a mission to establish relations with the remaining major powers. Its message was simple and understood by all. "We come in peace, but never mistake our preference for peace as weakness." This time, there were no ambushes, no betrayals. The lesson had been learned. Humanity had tried peace first. The galaxy would not forget what happened when that peace was rejected.